Hello, Congressman Donald Payne Jr., and I want to welcome everyone to the 6th Annual State of African American Small Business Issue Forum. This year's forum is titled A Call to Action. Now is the time. Today we will discuss how we can increase wealth through the power of Black innovation and entrepreneurship. I want to thank Jill Johnson, CEO of the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership, for moderating today's discussion. And I want to thank our panelists for joining us today. Gregory Campbell, President and CEO of Rainmaker, Inc. Tanya Van Court, founder and CEO of Goal Setter. James Lowry, Senior Advisor at Boston Consulting Group, and Janae McQueen Nazari with Living Cities. They're going to lead us in our discussion on how we can use the power of Black entrepreneurship to increase the wealth in our companies, communities, and culture. We know that there are several great ideas for products and small businesses in our minority communities. Recently, I visited a few of them at a small business incubator in New Jersey. The city had taken old supertanker shipping containers and divided them into sections. Then it turned the section into small business centers, small stores for local entrepreneurs. This is an example of small business development that we can generate nationwide. And I'm looking forward to continuing to see them grow in the 10th District of New Jersey as well. We can generate these small businesses through these incubators, helping them grow when we work together as a community. Our panelists are experts in how we can open doors for our entrepreneurs to start or grow a business, and how that growth could be the key to increase wealth in our Black communities. In Congress, I'm fighting for policies that support them every single day. Policies like increasing the minimum wage, like fair taxation, and policies like equal spending in education. But the best thing we can do is mentor and support our own. The people participating in this forum are some of the most successful and accomplished African Americans in the country. There is an education you receive outside of the classroom that helped you succeed as well. That knowledge is a resource that could help the next urban high school student become the next Oprah Winfrey or Robert Smith, a Black chemical engineer who became a billionaire investment banker. Either way, we need to encourage our youth to stay in school and promote their small business dreams. Then we need to save more in our own households. We need to show our children how to handle money responsibly and pass it on more generously. That way, it is our grandchildren that get a better life, not just our own children. But I know our panelists have a lot more to say on these vital issues. So again, I will get out of the way and thank you for participating in this event. Now I will turn it over to our moderator, Ms. Jill Johnson.
Thank you so much, Congressman. It is a pleasure to be here again with you. Thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Jill Johnson. I'm honored to serve as the moderator for the 6th Annual State of African American Small Businesses. Our theme for this year is a call to action. Now is the time. There has been so much going on. There is so much energy that we have in our country right now. And while we're talking a lot about social justice, we want to make sure that we are really focusing the conversation as well on economic justice and economic empowerment. Now is our time to make that happen. And that's what we're going to focus on here today. This forum will focus on what we need to do to advance the conversation about Black wealth through entrepreneurship. As a community, we have talked about the problems for so long, and we've danced around solutions for decades. Now is the time that we must come together to act. Our time is short today, so I'm going to just get right to it and jump into the panel conversation. So I'm going to ask each of our amazing panelists, and the Congressman mentioned how amazing you all are, and he put that kind of descriptor, Black or African American, in front of it. And I would have to posit that we have some of the most amazing thought leaders in this conversation today, anywhere, Black or otherwise. So I'm so glad to have you all here. And, Jim, why don't we start with you? If you can just introduce yourself briefly and answer the question for us, why do we need to be focused on entrepreneurship and Black business growth?
Well, thank you for asking me to join this very distinguished panel. And I think it's very obvious. We live in a free enterprise system. We live in the largest capitalistic system in the world. But historically, we have not been there at the size and the involvement we should have. And because of that, I think all of us have suffered in the Black community. So I strongly believe that we should create more businesses. I think we should create all businesses of different sizes. Not only small businesses, because they're very, very important, but many of the small businesses have to grow and have to be large businesses. The Congressman mentioned Robert F. Smith and Oprah. Hopefully we can create many more Oprahs and Robert F. Smiths to really funnel money and really present different models for our youth. But I think we have to think differently. I think, and the only thing I would leave, with our panelists to discuss is that I think somehow or another in the past, we have not worked in a cohesive way, meaning elected officials, civil rights leaders, and business leaders. And I think you're absolutely right, Jill. Now is the time to do it. If we work together, we invest together, we support one another, I think we can grow businesses and really have an impact on the people who really need it most in our communities.
Thanks so much, Jim. Greg, let's go to you now.
Thank you, Jill. And again, it's an honor to serve on this panel, and to be on a panel with Jim Lowry any day is a wonderful experience. He's one of the deans of Black business in the United States. He's been fighting this battle for many more years, almost as long as I've been alive. Jim Lowry has been fighting this battle. And Jim, thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you, Jim.
I am the CEO of Rainmaker Inc. and the managing partner of Medellini Capital, a venture capital firm. And I have had the privilege of being both an entrepreneur and an investor in Black business. First of all, let's talk about entrepreneurship. Black people have been involved in entrepreneurship all across our history. It's been the building block for our communities, the source of our employment, the funder of our charities, our institutions, the platform for developing our community and political leaderships. Black business has the capacity to write checks, and those checks have been what have supported our charities, our institutions, and our political leaders. Income for Black business owners, if you look at it and measure it, is over 2 times what Black salary owners make. So by building our Black business owners, we're adding more income and wealth into the community. Black businesses have the capacity to significantly reduce Black unemployment. If Black businesses, just the Black businesses that exist today, were to add 1 or 2 employees, we would be fully employed as a Black community. So it's those kinds of impacts that the entrepreneurship and Black businesses have in our community. Entrepreneurship is actually right now, as Jim was alluding to, is the wave of the future. It represents the fastest growing employment sector in the United States, as well as the fastest growing sector in all of our universities. And we are blessed to live at a time period which due to the advances in technology, it's easier today to start, build, grow, scale a business than it has ever been in any time in the history of this country. We need to be part of that trend or risk diluting our economic, social, and political power.
Thank you, Greg. And, we're being informal here today. And so I want to go to Janae, but I want everyone to recognize she is Dr. Janae Queen Nazaire. So
I think we
Janae,
just call her
turn it
queen.
over to you and introduce yourself and give us some of that knowledge.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here and happy to contribute as a thought leader in the field. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Living Cities. It's a collaborative of the world's largest foundations and financial institutions working to close racial income gaps in income and wealth gaps. And one of the ways that we are focused on doing that is through investing in entrepreneurship. And I'm just honored to be here. I feel like the torch is being passed even in this conversation. And I just want to say that I take that up. So what I'd add to what's already been stated about why we're focusing on Black business growth and entrepreneurship is really about, it's about reframing the narrative. We have to unshackle Black businesses so that they can compete and thrive on a level playing field. But part of what's happening in the background, in addition to the lack of investment and the lack of resources and so forth, is that there's this notion that there's something wrong with us. And that is just not true. And we have to interrupt that narrative because it hangs over us in a way that adds just more burden to what we're already up against in trying to break through and trying to do all of the things that actually Greg just mentioned, all the things we can do, add to employment, build wealth, have economic security, and so much more. The challenge is people are afraid. Imagine what it would look like for us to be unleashed in full manifestation of our brilliance, excellence, and power. Black businesses do not suffer because something is wrong with us. There has and continues to be an ongoing legacy of excellence, but it's been constantly under assault by systemic racism. And so that's part of the conversation we have to have is about what do we believe and why do we believe it, and interrupting those beliefs that add barriers and burdens to our progress. So thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to hear from Tanya a little bit later about some of those issues that separate, the journey and the trajectory of Black business owners from many other people. But right now, Tanya, why don't you give us your introduction and tell us a little bit about Goal Setter.
I'm happy to. Thank you so much for having me here. I am inspired already, so I may just want to be quiet and hear everyone else talk, but I know that won't be an option for you, Jill, so I will go ahead. Hi, everyone. Tanya Van Court. I'm the CEO and founder of Goal Setter. Goal Setter is a savings, financial literacy, and smart spending app created especially for Black kids and families, all kids and families, but obviously I have a particular penchant towards ensuring that our Black kids are learning to save, learning financial literacy, and learning how to be financially free and healthy. Goal Setter allows for kids to sign up to save for goals, big or small, short-term or long-term. Family members and friends can gift them goal cards instead of gift cards. So on birthdays and holidays, our kids are learning how to save for things that matter instead of spending on more things that don't. Parents can sign up to save for autosave or roundups to help save for big goals over time. And then we layer on top of that a really fun layer of financial literacy quizzes that are mapped to national financial literacy standards. So kids are learning real things. In kindergarten, they're learning needs versus wants. In 11th grade, they're learning APY versus APR and compound interest and the rule of 72. But they're doing it all through a lens of memes and GIFs powered by hip hop artists, social media influencers, YouTube personalities, people that our kids can relate to and connect with, and in a language that makes them excited to learn about financial literacy. We need to ensure that we are providing our kids and our families and our community products that resonate with them in order for them to become financially independent and secure and learn this language of money that has for so long been kept in a different corner of the universe, in a corner that we weren't operating in. And so, as we talk about Black business, we are creating the next generation of Black business owners by teaching them the language of business. So we're no longer excluded. We no longer feel like we don't understand that language, and so we can't play in that game. And so we can become the next generation of savers, investors, entrepreneurs, and owners.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to, take a point of personal privilege here and suggest that one of the action items that we would like for everyone to take is to visit Goal Setter and understand more about it. We want people to start using these sort of platforms. And again, we can't just advocate and do commercials and things like that, but there's a pretty good one that's right here on the call with us today. So as you get to learn more about it, we encourage you to take a look at Goal Setter and how it can help you and your family start to save. So, want to get this conversation. We're not going to talk a lot about the history. Many of the people who are joining us today understand a lot of the history and the challenges and the issues, but I want to start with the history of what has been done around Black business growth and the different programs that have been put in place to stimulate Black business growth. Jim, you were a part of so many of those. You developed many of those programs. Talk about why they haven't worked the way that you might have expected. In your book, you mentioned that you thought that by now we would be further along. Talk about that for us.
Yeah, and you talk about history, and I have to go back and deal with the Congressional Black Caucus. When I designed the federal government's minority business program for Department of Commerce, I was working with Perrin Mitchell. And when Perrin Mitchell and others started working on this, the number of Black, he passed more laws than anybody had ever done. So I was so hopeful in 1978 when this occurred. More laws were passed while Perrin Mitchell was in office than in the history of the United States for minority business. So I just knew it. And we had the fastest growth rate ever in terms of Black businesses, in terms of revenue. And I just thought we had taken off, but we haven't. So you forced me to try and think of it. So I'm going to talk very quickly because I think that there are different reasons. One, I don't think many people wanted us to succeed. So we've had our experiences. We can talk about the movies we've seen. We've talked about Tulsa. There were many people who didn't want us to be entrepreneurs and be real players. I think the others is that we didn't inherit wealth. Many of the people who were able to grow businesses inherited wealth. We are all most first generation. I don't know about you, Greg. My parents were postal workers. So most of us were first generation. So we didn't have that wealth that we could lean on to invest and grow businesses. Three, I think, we have to face up to the facts. During the 60s and 70s, our best and the brightest were taken in corporate America. Jill, you know what school you went to. Many of your classmates went to Wall Street or went into consulting or went into big businesses. That whole generation was stolen. And we didn't have the best and the brightest becoming entrepreneurs and working together. I think that was the other thing. I think the other two, we didn't think big enough. Too often when we started businesses, we said, this is going to be it. This is going to take care of my family. It's going to take care of my kids. But we didn't think about like other groups did, how we're going to work, how we're going to grow, how we're going to be global and grow businesses and have a mindset of growth and largesse. And I think the others, which I alluded to in my introduction, I think as a group, we have not worked together like we did when Perrin Mitchell was there. So you had elected officials. Policy has changed the whole economy, the global economy. When people make decisions in Congress, as we're seeing today and we've seen recently, it changes the whole game. So when we can work together as elected officials, civil rights leaders, leaders in the community, and entrepreneurs, I think we stand a better chance. And I hate to say this, but I think unfortunately, and I hate to say it, but we have a aversion to merge with one another. And we just don't merge, and what is the mentality? I would merge with Craig. If he offered me, I would merge with him next week. I mean, we have to work together, share our experiences. And I thank you so much, Jill, because I think what you have with this panel is something I think should happen in every city. Intergenerational wisdom that is being shared. And until we start sharing what I can do and share with Janae and others, that's the whole game. And we haven't done that, and we have to do that.
Yeah, well, it is more about doing, right? We have to do, and we've done a lot of thinking and a lot of talking, and even again with all those amazing programs that you helped to put in place, Jim, we see that is just not enough. And so, Janae, I want to go to you for a minute. Because while we have to stop, just talking and writing about what should be done, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the impact of research and why it's so important, especially for the philanthropic community. And, Jim, in a lot of the work that you did at McKinsey, you talk, you put a lot of research into the work that was done. But Janae, talk about why research is so important in all of this.
Yeah, thank you. Well, 3 R's, representation, receipts, and results. And so when we are represented in the data and the research and people understand our stories, understand the impact of what's happening to us on the ground, then that allows us to require some results, require attention, require equality or equity in getting loans, in making sure that procurement dollars flow equitably to different players and so forth. And so having that representation in research is really, really critical. And so as you're looking at numbers and things like that, if people put that in front of you, make sure the data is disaggregated so that we can see ourselves and see what's really happening. One of the things that we've found in working in cities is that there was a lot of heralding of MWBE programs, Minority Women Business Enterprise programs. But when we looked at the numbers and we looked at the data, we found that white women were disproportionately benefiting from all of the resources that were available to support a broader set of folks. And oftentimes Black men and Black women and Black families were still going without with programs that were supposed to benefit us. And so research is really important to understand what's working, what's not working, and why. And then it moves us to those results. And until we can get those results, we got to keep waving those receipts, which are 228-year wealth gap for Black folks in the world. You've got a 10x greater wealth that white people have than we do. You can look at corporate and government procurement dollars and see how those things are not flowing to us, even though we are large portions of populations in cities. So I'm going to keep waving my receipt because I'm owed a debt. And so that will get me to results. And so that's why the research is really, really important. And I think the last thing that I'll say is that it's important to have numbers and stories. In this racial justice movement, there are lots of stories, and you have to realize that, as Brene Brown says, stories are data with soul. And so those stories are really, really important. And at the same time, we need to couple those with numbers, the data. People say numbers don't lie. Well, the people interpreting the numbers do lie. So call me back. But if we are looking at numbers and we have good quality data, remember that those numbers are people with the scare stripped away. And so data and research are really important in this movement to wealth creation and closing gaps, especially for Black folks, because it's all across every outcome: education, health, transportation. And I'll stop. Look at any numbers, we are behind. And so the root cause of that is structural racism. It's just in the water and the air that we breathe. And we have to change the conditions, but we can do that with more research in this work.
And Jill, I'm gonna be brief on this because this is so important. When I did the first private sector analysis for minority business, it was PepsiCo. It was Gregory's old company. And the first we did, we said, how much do you buy? On an annualized basis, how much do you buy? And God bless them, they let us look at all their data. And what we came up with, less than 1% of all those dollars went to minorities. Once I went to the CEO and I said, look, this is ridiculous. You know what your consumers are? You know what the Black consumers, the Hispanic consumers? You got to give us a bigger piece of that pie. That was the thing that we've used at Ford and all the rest of them to really drive the attention. Before we did that data analysis, they were giving us, I hate to say it, they were giving us chump change. So it just changed the whole dialogue. I'm sorry. But it's
I mean, it's so true. The other thing that I have realized is that, with this whole groundswell of everyone recognizing all that has been wrong and, everyone talking about recent events, which we all know here are not recent. One of the things that I have seen is that there are a lot of people who don't understand these issues. They don't understand the people who fancy themselves as being the allies. Just don't even understand the depths of the problems. So that research really helps to highlight the extent of the issue. Greg, I want to go to you for a minute. because it's been, you know, it was research and data that informed some of those early capital vehicles that were put in place, the MESBICs, and now the CDFIs, because, you know, the whole thing is there's not enough capital, we need capital. I'd like for you to talk for just a minute about, you know, those vehicles and why they still are not the end all. You know, why they're good vehicles, but, you know, talk about some of the challenges and why we need to go still beyond those.
I'm going to give you a one-word answer, Jill, and that is equity. Plain and simple. It's about equity. They've not been designed to address the most critical issue facing Black business today, not only from startup, but through growth. The availability, not only of just plain capital, but availability of equity.
Equity.
Black net worth in this country is $17,000. That's the average net worth. The average white net worth in this country is 10 times that, $171,000. We as a community just don't have the reserve equity resources to support what is called the friends and family round, so critical for business startup and stability. The MESBICs, the SBICs, the CDFIs are doing wonderful work, but they're not structured to take on this equity challenge. These organizations are primarily debt providers in a world that demands equity. The Dream Springs, the Lift Funds, the People Funds, the Axions, among others, are out there doing really wonderful work, but their presence is very stretched across the country. Where these organizations have been deployed, their financial scale and lending capacity does not match the problem that's facing the Black community. In the absence of friends and family wealth, we can't look to these organizations to scale Black businesses making, if they're making $500 or $1,000 loans, or even $100,000 loans, it's both the wrong type of capital and too small of an investment to help transform Black businesses to the next level. The government matching and tax credit programs inherent in these programs are subject to political whim and still require equity from sponsors in order to leverage the government's contribution. Again, a tall order for a community that's averaging $17,000 in net worth. And we're still missing something that was critically mentioned earlier, the business and financial education in our community to match the funding that is required. The language of business is finance. I want to say that again. The language of business is finance. And we must still strive to enhance the community's financial literacy. And since I knew that we were going to be on a panel with the Congressional Black Caucus, I do have a potential solution. I'd like to see us partner with the philanthropic and business communities to form regional evergreen funds of at least $300 million with the ability to structure equity, near equity, and secondary debt financing for Black businesses across the country.
Yes.
This would be a new initiative. It can be an initiative that would bring the philanthropic and business community together. We need to make sure that it's evergreen so it's not going to get a return and go away. This is something that would be permanent, Congressman, that would be in existence, and we'd have several regional funds like this across the country because each part of the country has different industries, different businesses, different needs. The people running the funds will be able to address the specific needs in each community. And I hold this out as a proposal, hopefully that we can talk some more about it at a future date.
Well, Greg, I think that's an excellent idea and a great starting place. And moving forward, let's really delve into that and see if it can be possible.
Well, on the website that we're going to give people at the end, and I might as well go ahead and give it now, blackwealthchampions.org, we are going to list some of the next steps that we talk about. We're going to put out there the issues that need to be discussed, proposals that we need to further work through. But this conversation is not over. So, we hope that everyone joining us today is just getting a taste, but we're going to keep this conversation going. So now I want to go to Tanya. And Tanya, you are here because one, we want to hear a little bit about your journey, your issues as far as capital. And I want you to especially highlight what you have faced versus what you have seen your white male peers face or others face. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, again, your specific objectives around the financial literacy aspect and how that plays in. But first, talk to us about your capital journey.
Sure, absolutely. So, Jill, as Greg referenced in the beginning, when you are a technology company in particular, the first expectation is that you go out and raise a friends and family round. And what the majority population tells us is that friends and family round is their first indicator of people believing in you as a leader and your ability to actually make this business work. What the majority population fails to realize is that you cannot raise a friends and family round from people who don't have money, no matter how much they believe in you. And so it's not an indicator of their belief in your success. If grandma could write a $250,000 check towards me, she would, but she doesn't have that $250,000 because she didn't get an inheritance, because she hasn't been equally compensated. So this wealth gap that we've talked about in our country directly impacts the ability of Black businesses to be able to get off the ground and then be able to fund their growth stage once they are off the ground. At every turn, you are facing the problem of a wealth gap in our community. So let's talk about the friends and family round for a moment. So number one, if we have 10 times less wealth than the average white family in America, then that means 10 times less money going into Black companies. So that's your number one, inhibitor in terms of your ability to be successful. Well, let's talk about what that looks like then. What that looks like is then I have to do 10 times the number of jobs as an individual entrepreneur because I can't hire people at the outset like my white counterparts can. They can hire 6 people, 7 people because they are given a big check in the beginning. I am scraping and struggling and surviving for every $1,000 that I get. And so I have to do 10 times the job. So the odds are always stacked against us. And that's what we found in terms of our personal journey, Jill.
Tanya, I want you to be real specific, as we talked before, so I know
Yes.
inside. And so tell us, kind of, again, how it happened that you raised money and people then, and people said, go out and do some more. But then when you went back to them, they said, oh, well, now there are other people in the field, they're crowded. Just give us a short version of that.
Okay, I'm happy to. So when we started this company, what I heard from all of the people in the venture capital space was kids finance is not a thing. No venture capitalist will ever fund a kids finance business. And then a white man came along who decided he was going to start a kids finance business. And they funded him at disproportionate rates, millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. And a second white man came along and decided that he also was going to start a kids finance business, and they funded him at millions of dollars. Literally a $3.8 million check just to get started with no product at all. And meanwhile, we've raised $2.5 million over 4.5 years. They raised $3.8 million in one conversation. It takes us 5 years to raise not even a fraction of the money that they raise in that single conversation. So after they started getting funding, I went back to the venture capital market and I said, hey, now I see that you guys understand, venture capitalists, that kids finance is a thing. We have a great product in the market. Now will you fund us?
And you're generating revenue already, right, Tanya?
Great product in the market, already generating revenue, had customers who said this is the best thing since sliced bread, really great reviews from customers. And then what I heard was, well, that's awesome that you have this great product in the market and your competitors don't even have a product in the market yet, but they're well-funded. And there's no way you can compete against well-funded competitors. And we're not going to put our money into you to compete against well-funded competitors. So sorry, you missed the boat. We missed the boat that we were the ones driving, but they didn't want to put fuel in the boat when we were driving it. It took 2 white guys to come along to drive their own boats. And they said, we'll put fuel in those boats. We'll let those boats get a mile ahead. And then we'll tell you, you missed the boat. And that's consistently what happens to our companies.
And that is the reason that, again, we want to keep driving this conversation about the need for more Black people to get involved in the investor ecosystem, to not only put money in themselves, but to help to open doors and to use the resources that we have collectively to help entrepreneurs, to help founders like Tanya not have to deal with what she dealt with. Anyone else have any comments, thoughts on that? Janae, you look like you have something that you want to add here.
I know, and our time is short. So I think, Jill, you're right. And James talked about it earlier in terms of like helping each other. But can I just name the other thing that we have to figure out is this notion of Black exceptionalism and the only one. It's like when one of us makes it, there's no more room for others. That's a trick. It is a trick. It is not true. And we have to reject that, because what happens is one gets in, we get celebrated, we get enough money, and like everybody's like, hey, white folks like, we did our job, we're good, we're done. No, that is unacceptable. And so that is why the power of the collective is critical. It is absolutely critical. And Tanya, to your point about, you know, the 10X, it's more than 10X, because you gotta account for all of the compounded interest and all of the loss and all of the investments you didn't make that would have gotten you more money. So I'm sorry, I'm just excited over here. And
That's right.
I'll be brief to this very point too. I think two things. One, I'm a member of something called Executive Leadership Council, which is all the top Blacks, you know, either presidents of Fortune 500 companies or two people down. We have close to 800 members. I would probably guess net worth of each member is about $8 to $10 million. We're talking about a sizable amount of money. At this point in time, we're not investing the money we have within our communities in the way that should be invested to really have growth. When I started, we didn't have, you know, 800 people in a room with a net worth of $8 to $10 million. We do now. What are we doing now? We can buy a couple of more homes in Martha's Vineyard. We have to reinvest in our own people and grow. I happen to be on a board with Warren Buffett, a small college in Grinnell, Iowa. And Warren Buffett came up and said, one of our guys is going to invest. He's going to leave his company and start his own company. If two people on the board or three want to put some money with the understanding I'm going to turn that money over to Grinnell if he's successful, then I highly recommend it. So Warren Buffett recommended two old guys put in $150,000. The guy who brought the proposition was Bob Noyce. He started Intel. Grinnell College has endowment of $3 billion.
I love that story, Jim, when you told it in your book. I couldn't
I
believe
mean,
it.
to me, this just says everything. So I saw the power of the West Coast. I saw the power of venture capital, okay? And so I got with these young guys. I just deal with young people. Greg, you're the oldest person I deal with. Okay, so I only deal with young people. They just make me feel good and happy. So this guy happened to be an equity partner in a $2 billion venture fund. Now this brother I'll give you his name. His name is Kobe Fuller. He could have just forgotten all about us and forgot about the problems that Tanya articulated. He said, no. He went to his partner and said, give me $3 million. I want to start a platform to connect all Black people. He said, okay, how much? You only want 3? Okay. Napkin. Did that 3 million. We built it, and I'm part of it. We built this platform. The platform ain't good enough. We got enough task staff. Went back to the same partners. Guess what? Got 5 million more. Guess what we're doing? We're starting a network of all the Black venture capitalists around the country. So Tanya, the Tanyas today, the Tanyas tomorrow will have instant access to these guys who don't know. That's the unfortunate thing in the Black community.
That's right.
We don't know about the Tanyas. We should.
That's right.
Okay. And so we got to connect the opportunities with the capital, with the people of goodwill, irrespective of color, but of goodwill, who sees the very issue what we're talking about. If Black people do not get investments and grow their own businesses, not only do Black people suffer, not only does Harlem suffer, America suffers.
Oh,
America
absolutely.
suffers.
Jim, a
Absolutely.
very, very true word. And I'll just be brief, Jill, because I know our time is short. Tanya, I just want to say to you, your journey was a journey that I had as an entrepreneur. And that's why I made a decision many years ago to flip and get onto the other side of the table, first starting and raising a private equity fund, and now running a venture capital fund, because the opportunities and availability of equity capital to people that look like us is so thin. It's so hard to find. It is so difficult, and it's all about networking. I'm very proud at Medellin Capital that we have a fully diverse GP group. There is 2 African Americans, 1 Korean American, 1 Japanese American, and 1 Indian person. We're completely diverse. And that has given us visibility into the community like no other venture capital firm, because we're touching all the various minority groups across the country.
That's
that
right.
was done on purpose. We are looking for deals, but we're specifically looking for healthcare deals because we're looking at the fastest growing areas. But Tanya, fintech and the areas that you're involved in are growing like crazy around the world, and you should not be having difficulty raising capital. It is all because of you being Black,
That's
you
right.
being a woman.
Well,
And
Greg,
I just want to
I'm glad
say,
you said it. I'm glad you said it, and I'm glad you put it out there. And again, I want to put out there, blackwealthchampions.org. We are going to put some information about how we can all be connected, how people can connect with these different initiatives, because that is what we need to do. We need to be connected, and we need to be focused. We need to pick winners, folks like Tanya. We need to pick winners, and we need to help them win. So now, because we have really short time, we have like 10 minutes left or so, I want to do like speed, okay? So speed here. And I want to get everyone involved in these last couple of questions. If we are serious about building Black wealth, where should we be focusing our attention and energy? Where should we be focusing our attention and energy? Again, just a couple of words. Tanya, start with you.
we have to change the next generation of kids so that they understand the path to Black wealth. Someone said before that we didn't have, I think it was Jim, that we didn't think big enough. We didn't dream big enough. We need to teach these kids that they too can be the next Robert F. Smith. It is entirely within their capability set. And if they believe that, and if we teach them the path to getting there, then by 2053, Black people don't have to have a negative net worth. Black people can be just as wealthy as the majority population because we got all these kids there in the next 33 years.
Absolutely. Janae.
So I would actually leverage what we consider Black middle class and let six-figure Black folk know that they can be accredited investors, that investing in entrepreneurs is a path to wealth creation for themselves. A lot of folks who are those who work in businesses or get stolen by corporates don't actually even understand or know what they're able to do. So I would also lift that up in addition to, investing, getting the right kind of capital, equity capital to invest.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that with our initiative, Making Black Angels. So absolutely on point there. Greg, what should we be focusing on and putting our attention and energy into?
Well, I'm going to be totally controversial. First of all, we need to be funding financial literacy and education for our community. And then we need to focus our monies, our efforts on Black women. I said it. It may seem that everybody's going to fall out about this, but we need to be focusing on Black women. They represent 60% of Black businesses, but average only 50% of the revenue of Black male businesses. Second thing we need to is encourage Black angel investors. Support the Investors of Color Network that is being formed. Support Jim's program that is looking to link all of the venture capital folks throughout the country together. And then finally, again, Congressman, another one of my proposals. This is my 5x5x5 program. I want to challenge the top 20 municipalities in the United States to facilitate the creation of 50 new Black-owned businesses generating $5 million within the next 5 years. 5x5x5.
Absolutely. And I know, Greg, we're talking about some things that are moving in that direction as well. So that's exciting. Jim.
I would go back to research. We have to do our research on the industries that are growing. Greg is absolutely right. Health is going to represent 26% of the GNP, and there are no Blacks of any size in that whole industry. Related to industry, I would also do the research, technology. We've danced around this. Technology is going to control the world. It is controlling the world now. We're not in it outside of Robert S. Smith and a couple other people. And that's where we can have big hits and use the brilliance of some of these kids coming out of North Carolina A&T, Ohio State, Harvard, Stanford, Cal, who are the geniuses who can come up with those apps that we could invest money into, just like Bob Noyes, and make a lot of money for the nation. And I think the only thing I would say, Greg, my thing I said in my book is I said, look, I think we ought to have 2 Black billionaires in 20 cities. So I think we can do both. I think we can continue to help the small businesses. I think the key to our growth is going to be mid-sized businesses, but I still think big. And maybe because I'm older and I don't know how much time I got, I want to see major changes. And if we had 2 Black billionaires in 20 cities in this country, it would not be the same game.
Absolutely. So, we have talked about a lot of issues here. We're going to continue this conversation. As I mentioned, I need, again, 1 sentence from each of you. We're in our last 5 minutes now. 1 sentence, please. What is the action that you would like to see people take who are viewing this session? Jim, let's go back to you and then we'll go around.
Trust in one another, one another, have respect for one another, and we can grow this thing together.
Thank you. Greg.
Invest in Black business and increase your personal financial literacy.
Thank you. Janae.
Imagine Black Power unleashed.
And Tanya will give you the last word here.
Buy Black, including going and signing up your kids for Goal Setter right now. And invest in Black businesses, including anyone who's interested in investing in Goal Setter, because we're about to close a round on September 15th. So get in now.
Absolutely. So while our time together has come to an end, we're going to invite our panelists to get together again. I mean, we could have kept this conversation going for hours, right? So we're going to invite our panelists to come together again for a live discussion so we can even take questions and invite audience participation. If you would like to receive an invitation to join us as well as other information about building Black wealth, please use the link at the end of this presentation to join our mailing list. Thank you again to our amazing panelists for sharing insights, and to Congressman Payne for continuing to provide the platform for this discussion to take place. Congressman, I'll turn it back over to you to close us out.
Well, I'd like to thank all the panelists and especially you, Jill, for your consistency in making this happen. I'm really frustrated by the opportunity not to have more time to have this conversation go on. I'm definitely going to bring up to the CBC ALC weekend that since it's being taped, we might as well go for 2 hours. I mean, it's a matter of, the topic that you're interested in, and I think people will have time to do it. So I'm definitely going to bring that up with the people running this whole show. But thank you so much for such great information from all of you. I was on my phone. I hope you didn't notice me looking down, but I Googled goal setters, and so I'm already looking to see what I can do for my family and get the word out.
It is amazing.
And to all of you, just thank you. Mr. Lowry, Greg, Janae, and Tanya. This has been incredible, and I was not disappointed in the panel and continuing this great conversation that we've been having for the last 6 years. So, as you heard, there are several issues we need to address to increase the wealth in our communities and empower future entrepreneurs. In the end, it comes down to supporting our own, period. We need the people in this room, the ones that represent the best of our culture, to help others become successful. And, to the panel, I also, while sitting here, want to think about the people in our community every year that come into money in the entertainment field and also the athletic field, and how we approach them on understanding the things that we're talking about here, and maybe turn them into some type of fund. And maybe that's something that we can delve into at a later date, where you might have ideas on how to get them to understand the possibilities for them to grow their wealth and also help the community in growing wealth. But thank you so much. It could be a great situation that we see moving forward. So, there are both resources we need within our Black communities to empower our Black businesses. Once again, thank you for participating in our 6th annual State of African American Small Business Issue Forums. And I want to thank our panelists, Gregory Campbell, James Lowry, Janae McQueen Nazari, and also Tanya Vancourt. Thank you on your ideas and experiences on how to grow our African American small businesses. And a special thanks to my partner in this, Jill Johnson. She does a wonderful job moderating the panels every year. And so I hope you enjoyed our discussion, and I look forward to seeing you next year. Good luck and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
To be young, gifted, and Black. Oh, what a lovely, precious dream. In the whole world, there's a billion boys and girls who are young, gifted, and Black. And that's a fact, yeah.